You'd hear bombs go off at night, you'd hear gunshots going off at night. Like literally for the first 7 years, it was every single day you'd hear gunshots. So like I hear more gunshots here than my 7 years in the military. So dark. And so we go to this neighborhood at 6 in the morning and do this video. And I go to these two young guys, hey, can I do a video of you? And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And they're rolling drugs and playing a game. And as they were setting up the camera, this guy texts me in the back and he's like, you got permission to do that? I said, yeah, I asked the two guys, did you talk to the man? I'm like, well, where's the man? And so then and finally they could put me in a room about the size of a normal master bedroom, full of tables, full of drugs and money. And I'm like, okay, this is either gonna go really good or really bad, right? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, so they introduced me to two guys. It was a really dark room. And both of them had polo shirts on and they had their little kidney bag, they had their guns in it. And they're like, here's the two guys, ask him. So I asked this guy and he's like, what do you think, boss? I'm like, how many people is gonna filter? He's like, I'll let you film from this block down and this block over. If anybody asks anything, just tell them Jonathan approved it. We open up the home, we feed about 50 mothers every Monday night, and they bring in about another 30 children. And so about 80 people receive food. And then we give them some encouragement and teach them some values and how to live here in Medellín. And then, hey, instead of going out in the streets every day peddling, we say, come on Wednesdays, those who really want to break that cycle of poverty, and we'll teach you a skill trade.
In this episode of Make America Remote Again, I get a chance and a pleasure to speak to Dr. Brian Miller, who's lived in Colombia for 27 years and has started one of the top foundations to helping homeless people, specifically pregnant mothers that were at one point homeless, and giving them a home, food, shelter, and just ultimately a chance at a better life. It was a fascinating conversation because, I've lived in Colombia for many years, and usually I interview all sorts of entrepreneurs and people talking to me about hiring and scaling their business. I wanted to make this podcast a little bit different because we're coming up on a time where every year, right around Christmas, we're recording this towards the end of November now, where we want to raise capital and donate back to the community, specifically buying gifts for children here in Medellín. But I also want to connect with other charities because not only kids are struggling here, there is homeless people and sick people and prostitution, and there's also a lot of help that Medellín needs. And one of the things that I always tell myself and my friends in the community here is this city gives us a lot. It gives us an opportunity to live a better life. We get to live in penthouses and have chefs and maids and just live an absolute dream life. The one thing that we absolutely must do every year is to give back, no matter what it is, whether it's with our time, with money, with spreading the word. And that is one of the things that we're going to continuously do. This is the third year in a row that myself and the community here are donating back. So it just felt right where I was like, you know what, I want to interview someone that's been in the community for not one, not two, almost 3 decades, and being able to see this city completely transform from not having any visitors and tourists to having hundreds of thousands to millions of tourists on a regular basis, but more importantly, having a very, very deep mission to changing the city, making the city a better place, not just for gringos and for locals who are thriving, but for homeless people, for single moms, for children, and anybody else that's struggling. Because if you don't know what poverty is, you come to a third world country and you'll know what poverty really, really is. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. The link to donate is in the bottom in the description, so you can donate anything, $1, $5, $100, whatever you are able to do goes a very long way. And if you ever come to visit Colombia, we will go together to one of these charities and one of these foundations so you can actually see where your money or what this is all about and share it with anybody you know, and ultimately continuously help make the city a better place. Remember, we're gonna make America remote again. Thank you, and I'll see you on the episode. Welcome back to Make America Remote Again. I'm here with Dr. Brian Miller, all the way in Medellín, Colombia. And guys, I'm so excited for this episode because a lot of times when I talk to people about living here in Colombia, I talk to them about, I've been here for 3-4 years and I have a team here. And they're like, wow, you must be one of the OGs in Colombia. And I'm like, I am one of the OGs here in Colombia. I've been here since 2020. And then I meet someone like Dr. Brian, who has been here for 27 years, who has literally seen Colombia go from, a country that most people never come, and he's probably one of the only Americans that was here at one point, to now it is blossoming with tourists and Americans and gringos, and we'll talk about the good about it and the bad about it. But Dr. Brian, I'm excited to have you here. Thanks for coming to the podcast, and let's get this rolling.
Oh, I'm excited about this time.
Amazing.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So let's take it back 27 years ago, because I'm 29, so I'm putting myself, I'm like, that means you came here around 1997, 98. And first things first, like, it is today's day and age, it's kind of wild to come to Colombia. But today you have the internet, you can research. What the heck made you want to come here 27 years ago?
Yeah, so 27 years ago, we didn't really have Google back then.
Yeah.
So I came to Colombia knowing about the violence from what the news reported, and I really enjoyed my time in Colombia. It was a whole nother Medellín, a whole nother city at that moment. It was the violence. I was previously in the military, and I had never seen really violence in the military at all. But in Medellín, you were worried about walking around the next corner. You'd hear bombs go off at night. You'd hear gunshots going off at night. Like literally for the first 7 years, it was every single day you'd hear gunshots. So like I hear more gunshots here than my 7 years in the military. So it was a whole nother country. But the reason why I came was because there was a big, gigantic need in Medellín. At that time, there were 4,000 homeless children in Medellín from 5 to 18 years old. And I was like, we can help these kids have a better place. And so that was kind of the main purpose for coming to Colombia at that moment.
And how did you hear about the kids? Like, what was your connection to finding out about this?
Yeah, so in my local church where I was at in West Virginia, there was a foundation they had established in Medellín, Colombia. And the missionaries would come back and say, here's what's going on in Colombia and homeless children and the violence, the guerrilla warfares, and how they're producing these homeless children. And I was like, well, let's go on a short-term trip. I went to the Dominican Republic on a short-term trip, helping the poor, and I thought that was really cool. And just take I was in charge of all these singles people. I was like, hey, let's go down and take a singles Bible study mission trip. Let's go down and just love on these children and help this foundation. So we went for a 10-day trip that turned into 15 for good reasons. We're like, we love this, and we're all single, and we can help these people. Let's help these people. And so we stayed, and then at that time I was repairing airplanes with the military, and I was like, you know what, if I can fix an airplane, I could probably help these kids. And so I started studying how to help children.
It's something that we connected about. Is it's one thing to be older, handicapped and not being able to afford life, and it is a terrible situation, but it's a whole other life and really ball game. When it comes to kids, because they're dealt this hand. There's nothing that they could do against it, and I think that that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you, because it's still happening today, and it obviously foundations like yours and we met at the charity event. They help a lot, but it's still a lingering problem. And I do want to dive a little bit later on about what you're doing and how to help. But you came here, really years after Escobar was murdered. Was any point where you're like, okay, this is kind of insane? Because it's almost like going to Germany in 1949. Right. That's basically what you did, like right after World War II. Obviously not as crazy, but was any part of you like, this is so scary, this is sketchy? Obviously no internet. Like how did you even make that leap of faith to come here?
Yeah, so it was really the Lord, because I felt like His protection, and I'm like, I want to go. And we walked in the most dangerous neighborhoods in Medellín, and so I got stories after stories of going to places, and the Colombians like, you went where? And who did you talk? No, you didn't do that. Like, yeah, we went in and we fed these poor people. And, but it's for the first 7 years I was single. And so I go back and forth and work with the kids, and it was no big deal. Then I got married, and then my wife and I, we moved here, and we were driving down the road midday, and I heard fireworks going off. I was like, oh, that's interesting. 3 o'clock in the evening, letting off fireworks. And I had a van. I had 11 passenger van with 15 people in it, the typical Colombian way to drive things. There's all these kids in the van, and I'm coming around a blind turn, and I see this guy running down the street with his pistol shooting at these young kids. And I was like, what in the world? And so in my mind, this is like a movie. Like you see it on TV, this is not real. And then when I realized it was real, my wife jams down into the floorboard of the van, and I put the car in reverse and just did the whole James Bond driving, going back as fast as I could, not even looking, see if there was a car behind me, and got us out of the way of that shooting. At that time, I was like, this is kind of real. This is just a real thing. I'm not just thinking of my own life, but thinking of my wife's life. And so that was like a surreal moment for us on like, hey, this is a real thing. Your life is in danger, but at the same time, you're protected from the Lord. So there's a passage that says, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And that was actually a point between two towns, and it was a very dangerous community to go through. And so I believe if you're with the Lord, you don't have to fear, just keep on moving forward. So, but I got many stories. Like 10 years ago, I go downtown at 6 o'clock in the morning and we'll do a video so that people can see what we're doing in Colombia, because it's something very different than what you see in the States or throughout the world. And there's certain parts of Colombia that are very dark. And so we go to this neighborhood at 6 in the morning and do this video. And I'm with these two young guys that never really worked with street people. And we got like a $4,000 camera in the middle of the homeless. And I go to these two young guys, hey, can I do a video of you? And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And they're on drugs and playing a game. And as they were setting up the camera, this guy texts me in the back and he's like, you got permission to do that? I said, yeah, I asked the two guys, did you talk to the man? I'm like, well, where's the man? And so then they introduced me to someone. I told them what we were doing. We're trying to raise money to help the homeless people. And we need to make people see the need. And so they're like, did you talk to the man? And I'm like, so they actually sent me 4 different people saying, this is the man that gives the approval. And finally, they could put me in a room about the size of a normal master bedroom, full of tables full of drugs and money. And I'm like, okay, this is either going to go really good or really bad, right? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, so they introduced me to 2 guys. It was a really dark room, and both of them had polo shirts on, and they had their little kidney bag, that had their guns in it. And they're like, here's the 2 guys, ask him. So I asked this guy, and he's like, what do you think, boss? I'm like, how many people is going to filter? He's like, I'll let you film from this block down and this block over. If anybody asks anything, just tell them Jonathan approved it. I was like, okay. So then we go out and we're filming, and everyone's like, you got approval for that? Yeah, Jonathan approved it. Oh, okay. But it was like this thing of, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're going in for right purposes, and if you're going to help the people and you're going with the right ideas, you're protected, and they open up the door. So, but even in Colombia, they have like certain neighborhoods that are run by barrio kings, like mafia. Yep. And so you want to go and do a medical brigade. And so then you go in a month beforehand and you talk to the mafia, you talk to the kingpins, hey, we're coming in. And then they kind of do like a political thing. I'm bringing you all these doctors. And so we come in and help the poor there. But it's all about negotiating. I'm sure it's different with criminals so they can go in and help the ones that really need to help. So
yeah, we talked about this earlier too. The criminals here are different. There's criminals everywhere in the world, and criminals are still criminals. But the criminals here run the country a lot of times, and it's just what we have to deal with. There's nothing that we can do. And the one thing is, going back to what you're now doing, which is helping children just have a better life, right? It's not like you're giving them like Disney World every day, but just protecting them from the streets and giving them the opportunity to maybe learn English, maybe get a good job, work with a company similar to mine, or even anything. It doesn't have to be, even a remote job. But at what point did you realize this is what I want to do? Because you weren't doing that before you came here. You were part of the church. But at what point did you realize, okay, I definitely want to, work and help children, and of course, save them in a sense? And did you think you were going to do it for 27 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my goal was to be, a flight engineer on a C-130. That was working as a crew chief on a C-130 on the airplane. And the military said, hey, well, you want to be a flight engineer, go to flight school. And so I was like, okay. So I was like, if I'm supposed to be a flight engineer, that's the next 20 years of my life. Or if I'm supposed to be a missionary helping these young kids on the streets, that's the next 20 years of my life. And so I got to do a medical exam. And so it come out, there's like 10 things in a flight examination. And the very first thing come out, I was colorblind. So no, you can't, you're colorblind, you can't be a flight engineer. And so I was like, okay, I understand. So I finished out my career with the military and then came here and lived. But at that point, it was like the cross in the road, like which way I go. And so I had taken that test probably like 3 years before that. I had taken the actual physical exam to be in the position I was in. I wasn't colorblind at that moment. I was like, okay, so this is my destiny, right? Yeah. And so from that point, I just worked super hard to be the best I could. I started studying to be a counselor. And then I went for a master's in missiology. It was like with the focus of starting up nonprofits, start up small businesses to provide for the nonprofits. Mm-hmm. And then I came here and lived. And then I went for my doctoral in leadership just because there's so many like needs of leadership. And, there's a lot of people in the field that's working really hard with the skin in their teeth, but they have no leadership skills. And so I studied hard for that. Mm-hmm. And then part of it too is like over the years, like we helped boys in the one foundation. And then we started helping, like in Colombia, there is a lot of poor people helping the poor, but there's very few middle, upper class or wealthy people helping the poor. So then I felt like, hey, we need to make a transformation on the city. We need to help, there's these wealthy people that drive by the poor all the time that would like to help them, but they don't know how to help them. And so let's start reaching out to these wealthy people with the idea like the Lord puts love in their hearts, and love they just share to the community with whatever gifts and talents you have. So we started doing that, and we started going out in the streets, feeding the homeless. When we go out where all the, 11, 13, 14, 15 to 30-year-old prostitutes are at. And so they're in prostitution. We go over to the kingpins and give them a cheese stick and a hot tea. And then they had to say, okay, you can go feed the girls. And we go feed the girls and start talking to the girls. And one of the girls there were pregnant and said, hey, gringo, take me home. And I'm like, well, I can't take you home, but I know there's a bunch of gringos that would love to take you home. And that was kind of where the vision for Esther's Home was birthed. And so then we just started doing fundraising and sharing the vision. We want to rescue these girls, and more than just rescue, like we want to be a holistic. You just don't want to like, hey, here's some bread and here's some food. Like you want to give them the abilities to get a job and employment.
What year was this?
So that would have been, when we got the vision, it was 9 years ago. And so then for 2 years, we did fundraising for the project. And then it took us a year to build the house. And then since that, we've been running the house for the homeless, homeless pregnant girls.
Right. Okay. So let's dive into it. So now the main mission is to save, like, is it to save prostitutes from the streets? But you guys also, I know you guys also work with children. Is that correct? Like in a sense. So how does the foundation work? What's the ultimate mission of the foundation, and how can people help?
Yeah. So on our case, we have several different like branches off our foundation. So the first main branch is pregnant homeless girls. If you're pregnant living on the streets, if your mother kicked you out of the house because you're pregnant, if you're living in the desert here in La Guajira and Medellín and you're like a little hut and you're pregnant and your family has no resources to help you to make sure you have nutrition and food, we'll pay for the bus and they'll bring them to our home. And in our home, it's outside of Medellín, so it's like a really nice therapeutic area. It's not like it's a big overpopulated city. And so all these girls that used to be on drugs, we work with them to help them get off drugs and do inner healing with them and give them education, help them get their GED. And the main thing, I won't say the main thing, but one of the main things we do is this job skills, right? So like we teach them in-house. We have industrial sewing machines. We have a beauty salon. We have computers with the idea that these girls will be able to provide for themselves. So they don't have to go back to that trade they had before, and we teach them how to manage your money, manage your time, and how to be a mother. Because a lot of the mothers, their pregnancy are from abuses. They don't know who their father was, or they do know who their father was, and he was terrible. So I don't even, they teach them how to love their babies. And so the idea in that home, they live there 6 months to 16 months. And they could come to us 14 years old. They can come to us 15 years old. They can come to us, we even had 33-year-old ladies come to us pregnant with no like network, like they're sleeping underneath the bridge and come live with us. And so in that home, the girls have absolutely no network. After they finish that program, they go to another home, and that's downtown in Medellín. And so now it's like, hey, you're 14 years old. I said the 14-year-old comes in pregnant in the first home. Now she's 16. We got all the job skills. What we're going to do is we're going to send you off to work. You're going to work. You're going to provide for your baby. and we're going to take care of your baby while you're at work. You're kind of like a grandmother, or it's more or less a grandmother or an aunt taking care of the baby while they're off to work, or we put them to the local nursery and then we'll pick them up early until the mother comes home. And then those young girls, if they do well, hey, we'll send you off to college. So you can not only just have a job skill, but you can actually have a profession. And you can work for your company. You know? We'll teach you, and some of them are learning English, actually be able to work in places similar to what you're creating. So, and then, Lord willing, once they've learned to manage your money, they learn to manage your time, learn how to be a really great mother, then we'll help them make that next transition in. Okay, here's an apartment. We're going to help you. You saved up enough money to pay your first month of rent. All the different friends and volunteers come along in Medellín. We give all the furniture and more or less fill the house full of furniture. Yeah. And you're set. And now you're rolling and you're self-sustaining. And now those girls are now giving back to society, right? They're coming back to the foundation, encouraging the other girls. You can do it. I was able to do it. You can do the same thing. And so they're giving back to society. They're going out in the streets with us at night, feeding the poor.
Nice.
And so it's like a big circle, right?
Yeah.
So that's one part. And then there's another big, gigantic need. There is a major problem in Venezuela right now. Medellín and it's not publicized, is the largest, what do you call it? The transfer of people, the largest immigration problem of Venezuelans coming through Colombia. Yeah. Either coming through Colombia, staying in Colombia, or going through Colombia to go to another country. But the immigration, the refugees, that's the word.
Refugees,
sorry. Yeah. I shouldn't do that word.
I was going to say trafficking. I was like, that's completely different. Yeah.
So they have this gigantic refugee problem. It's the largest refugee movement right now, currently in the world. If you look at the numbers coming in, being refugees. And so our home downtown, what we're doing is we open up the home. We feed about 50 mothers every Monday night, and they bring in about another 30 children. And so about 80 people receive food. And then we give them some encouragement and teach them some values and how to live here in Medellín. And then, hey, instead of going out in the streets every day pedaling and washing windshields and holding your baby in your arm, and it's hard for them because they don't have money to put their kid into school so that they can get a regular job, and they don't have the paperwork. So like we say, come on Wednesdays, those who really want to break that cycle of poverty, and we'll teach you a skill trade. And so there we have like 10 industrial sewing machines and other facilities. The girls come for the training, and then we set them back up and make contacts with them so they can get a job in the world and be able to get a job and be able to provide for their babies. And we help them we have a social worker who works with them and their children to get them connected to local schools. So while their mother's working, their kid can be in a school. And so that's one of the things we're doing with the children and with the mothers.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll talk, a little bit about how people can help and, how the community that we have here now, because, when I came here, I know a couple people, and then we started going to dinners, and every week someone would invite someone, and then we now have a group of 1,200 people in my WhatsApp group, which was pretty cool. It's a little bit degenerate right now, so it's my group, but I'm also kind of like, it's not really my group anymore. But one of the things that I noticed, even, anytime I come back to Colombia, whether it's in Provenza and Poblado, and, usually, even I've seen it in Las Palmas even, and it's moms with kids outside. So how do you guys, and what do you guys do when you see something like that? Because it almost feels like I'm seeing the same faces, right? And the same moms and the same kids. Like what is the situation with them? Do they not want to be included in that? Or is it like, is it stubbornness? Is it like you guys haven't reached out to them? Like, how do you help those people here in this little city, because they're still here? Like, right. And I know that is like, it's heartbreaking to anybody, but there's nothing that most people feel like they can do.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix, right? So if you see the normal mother on the side of the street pedaling, she's standing on the corner with the same sign. It's a written out sign, I'm from Venezuela, please help me. And usually when it's a written out sign, they've been in the city for a long time, right?
Probably.
And so, and if you ask their children that's with them, where's your mom? Oh, she's right there and she's working. So they don't actually see it as a bad thing. They don't see it as not a job.
Because they have no idea.
Yeah, they see it as a job. And so my mother goes out pedaling for 4 hours, and then the mother kind of tells the kid, you're working with me. And then the kid feels really big. I'm working with her, and there's no expectation to go to school for the kid. And so, and then on top of that, the normal refugee, if they're on the streets, for 4 hours a day, they can make what a normal person would make minimum wage here in Medellín for 8 hours of work, working 48 hours a week. right? So you can go out and work 4 hours a day pedaling, or get a
40 hours, yeah.
48-hour-a-week job. So they're like, well, yeah, this is much better. And then they have the problem of their kid, right? I got to take care of my kid, so I can do this job with my kid. And so, but the idea of like trying to help, there is some work that has to be done to be able to teach these mothers, like, this is a job per se, right? But the truth of the matter is, you need to think about the future of your children, right?
Right.
If you, on this job, your children are just going to do the same thing. They're going to take, when you get old and you can't walk, they're going to be holding a piece of paper and they're going to be doing the same exact thing. Like, to break this vicious cycle of poverty, right? And so and it's not all of them. It's not all of them. And I don't want to be like, but there is a part of some of the refugees, because of the socialism in Venezuela, they got their free check and they never had to really work for it. And so when they came to Medellín, they had just thought, oh, I get a free check. I'm going to get free money. I'm going to go to another country. I get the same thing. Well, when they found that it wasn't that, then it was like the next easiest thing is work. But I don't like working, so let's pedal. And so work is considered something bad, where really work is not a bad thing, right?
Right.
So the thing of, it's like even teaching the value of work, the value of like, yeah, if you sweat, that's a good thing. It's like, and really appreciate the value of work and the feelings that comes from work. Being tired is not a bad thing. It's a reality of work, but but to be able to see the fruits of your labor, right? And so that's a whole social relationship, as well as a psychological thing, to work with them, to be able to say work's not bad, and we gotta work to be able to provide for our children. It's a joy to provide for your children and give them a whole nother future that you didn't have.
Yeah.
So there's that part. And there's the other part. There are some very wealthy Venezuelans that, like, you know, they had their businesses and they got robbed by the guerrillas there in Venezuela, and they come to Medellín with nothing. They had their business. They had no skill trades except being a business person, but they didn't really have anything that could adapt to Medellín. And then they're on the streets peddling, and they're the ones that kind of like, they're not the ones working 4 hours a day, right? They're the ones working 8 hours a day. And so they were the ones that working 10 hours a day, trying to get themselves out of poverty. And so the thing is, you know, you say, yeah, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So we're like, you give the opportunity to everybody, and we want to help them all. We want to give them all the same opportunities. But the ones that, so you kind of do a filter process. Oh, here comes 50 mothers we're going to feed on Monday night. Not all of them want to leave, but slowly as you build a relationship, and slowly as they see like some of the mothers that now are getting jobs and now they're providing a show, like, oh, well, if they're doing it, I can do the same thing. You know, so it's about, a lot of it's about relationship and about like building trust. Because it is another thing too, there's systems that they came from was a broken system. Relationship-wise, political-wise, everything was broken. So it's a slow process. It's one reason why we like going to the streets, feeding the prostitutes every 2 weeks, because when one of those prostitutes get pregnant, like, I know those guys, I know they'll help me because they come every 2 weeks and feed me. But if you just come once every 6 months, hey, here we are, we're a foundation, come if you ever need us. Well, they're not going to come, they don't trust you. You know? So.
And when you do the feeding the homeless, is there any like backlash to doing that by the cops or other strangers? Like, have you guys ever felt like, I'm doing the right thing, but this feels wrong?
Yeah, we haven't had any problems directly. There is a big move, governmental wise, they don't feed the poor, and there is a little bit to that. Like, so like the poor they have a system, right? They've got a system of survival, right? So we have a 1,200 square foot apartment. Right? And in the 1,200 square foot apartment, there's 25 people living in that 1,200 square foot apartment. And each person, 4 to 6 people in a bedroom, and they live in this environment, like this foundation's giving food over here. So we'll go over here on Monday, and this one's giving on Tuesday, and this one's giving on Wednesday, this giving Thursday. It's similar in the US. It's similar, like they know which food banks are giving out, and I can go to my food banks and also get my food stamps, and so I don't ever have to work, right? And so so on those systems, when you go in and you say, hey, this is really, you're going to just rely on other people to feed you all the rest of your life. Break that. That's the things where people like get a little upset when you confront them about it. Yeah. And they have every excuse and they have every justified. And in many ways, you could say they're justified for their perspective, right? Because they haven't seen another perspective. So the reason I give that story is because those houses are generational. So I'm a kid. I grew up. I watched my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother passes away. Now I'm the mother, and I have children. And now I have my mother's, and my mother's with me. She's now the grandmother. And so it's like generational. They see this circle over and over again. So they would come in and say, hey, there's a whole nother lifestyle. And so it's about taking them out of those environments and helping them. You asked about the question about the backlash. The government doesn't want you feeding them on the streets because of, as long as you're giving them the tip and it's true, as long as you're giving them money, there's no reason for them to look for a job.
And they're just on the streets.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help them progress. But it's not due to like...
It's not due for like mafia
poisoning or something crazy. Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, but for us, but it is important for us when we go in those neighborhoods to like respect the authority at hand. We're a nobody going in, right?
Literally, yeah.
And whatever those guys say, like you more or less you go in and say, hey, you run even the poor neighborhood, every neighborhood, right? You're the kingpins of the neighborhood. Will you allow us to set up a food thing? Oh yeah, go ahead. You can set it up, and you give them food, although they don't need food. You give them to them, so they're guilty. They have to give food to the others, And so, and you respect the invisible lines, if you want to say.
Sure,
and
sure.
So as long as you're respecting them, and then on top of that, like we're not like in your face. Come live with us.
Yeah.
We're just saying
offering it to them.
Yeah. And then a lot of times we won't even say it to the girl. We'll say it to the guy managing the girl. Like the other day, we were down there feeding the poor, and we come around the corner, and this 14-year-old prostitute was just beaten up by these other girls. So we come around the corner. She's got blood all over her. We take our first aid kit, and we're taking the blood off of her, and we're bandaging her, and then comes out she's pregnant, and we're like, hey. And then as we're taking care of her, then her pimp shows up. And her pimp was like a 16-year-old boy, and he was super small. And I could blow him over. I think in the back of my head, right? I could just beat him down, take the girl,
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, your girlfriend's pregnant. And we have a foundation. We could take her. It's up to you because you're in charge. Will you let us take her? Here's my card. Anytime, any day, just let us know. But, she was all beat up, and, we got her information. Yeah. And probably when she gets 3 months pregnant, she'll come to us. But it's like, but at that moment, the guy in charge is the little 16-year-old managing his 14-year-old
insane
girl. So
insane. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's terrible. It is absolutely sick. It's just and pretty much when you go out in the streets and you feed these girls, you have compassion for the girls, and you want to beat up all the guys that are driving around in circles. And the guys that drive around in circles is all classes. It's the poor, it's the middle class, it's the upper class, it's the foreigners in big black vans driving around looking for them. I mean, it's disgusting. It's a very sad. It's a very sad hidden thing in Medellín, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, and I bet it's happening more than just we're just here and we see it and it's in front of us, but it's happening in the U.S. I was telling you, I saw a documentary about that happening in Mexico. So, like, one of the things that I'm curious about is how do they trust you? And not just you, but your foundation in a sense, because, there's people that look, sound like they have the right intention, and then they actually end up kidnapping them and then selling them and whatever else. How do you build a trust with these women and men in people that are just completely broken because they feel like the world just handed them the worst card possible? And I think that has to be one of the hardest parts, is having them trust you to take the leap of faith that you're actually doing the best for them, because they're looking at you as a gringo, or maybe this guy just wants to sell me to whoever knows what it is. So how do you, what is that process?
Yeah, so we have like psychologists and social workers that work with us, and so they'll come with us. Like we get a case so the hospital calls us. We got a case of a girl who's been totally abandoned. She lives on the streets. She had just had her baby born. Can you receive her? And so normally the psychologists will go there and talk to her and say, here's who we are. And then when they come to the foundation, they'll see other girls their same age. And really, instead of the adults talking to them, hey, these young girls, come over and talk to the girls and tell them what you're receiving. So they actually have we'll bring you to the foundation. And if you want to stay with us, you can. It's like you're interviewing us as well as we're interviewing you. And so there's no strings attached. We'll bring you, and then we have videos of the foundation, so we're able to show the videos to the girls, like this is what we're doing, and this is some of the testimonies of the girls, and we can get you out of poverty. And so for the most part, they're so desperate, like they get this situation, anything.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything to eat, and I got beat up, so please take me through that through your home. It's just I don't want any more of this lifestyle. So for the most part, they want to they want to come here.
Yeah. You also talked about how here sometimes, whether they're from Venezuela or Colombia, they're on the streets and they can make a living on the streets, right? Maybe, the average Colombian makes about $300 a month, más o menos, right? Mm-hmm. So even making 250 or even a little bit more gives them a life is an exaggeration, but it gives them at least something to be able to breathe, to say the least. And I used to live in San Diego for a year. And actually, right before I moved to Colombia, I was in San Diego. And that was my first real experience with homeless people, because I believe that if you're homeless, South California is the haven. Like, you got to get whatever you got to do, get to California, get to South California, great weather, a lot of money, and then you can probably make $100 a day. I mean, that's being, that's like undermining it. So that mindset, it sounds like it's a pretty hard mindset to break when they're making some money, and then you have to also then, you're going to come and learn a skill, and then you're going to have to go work a job where you're working for someone else, where when you're on the streets and you're prostitutes, you're basically working for yourself, unless, you have a pimp. Again, what is that mindset of how do you guys talk them into, hey, this is how you're going to be able to break the better life? Because they're thinking about themselves and their kid, and they're like, well, this is the easiest money for me. Because the only reason someone is a prostitute is because it is the easiest money they can make. And it's also, they can charge gringos $300 $400 cup, which is like $100. It's not because they're like sluts. Right. Like, I think it's literally because it's the
a lot of them, you talk to them, they're in need. Like, you talk
100%.
I got to be here, and I got to make money to pay the rent because my mom's sick. Or I got to pay money for rent because I have 2 younger brothers. I got to make the money, and my father left us, or my father died, and so there's like, and I have no skill trade. So and so it's a vicious cycle. The crazy thing is, we've had some of our girls that were in that profession, and we say prostitutes, but I work with underage girls, so it's actually like sexual exploitation. And so, but they're still selling, they're being abused. But the thing about it is like, they'll tell my workers, I make more money than you. Why would I want to do this? I mean, and the prostitutes will make about $700 to $800 a month, which is good pay for Colombia, right? And then you're just on the street peddling, then you're making like $300 a month, what you're saying. And so, so part of it is like, hey, you come into our foundation and look at all the STDs you had. And all these STDs, your end result's going to be this, right? And you're going to die of it, you're going to have pain. And so if you didn't come to us and get this medicine, you're going to be infecting the rest of the world, as well as you're going to end up dying of this. And so, and you could be, if you didn't come to us at this moment, your baby that was going to be born would be having the same STD. And so, so part of it is like teaching, like what is because they don't, like in some cases, not the Venezuelan refugees, but more the Colombian prostitutes, they're, my grandmother was a prostitute, my mother was a prostitute, now I'm a prostitute. So my aunt was, and they all talk about it. It's like a normal job, right? So, because that's their little subculture within this big, large culture. And so they don't realize there's other ways of life. They don't realize there's other ways to make money. They don't see the opportunities to make money. And so it's like more like education, right? And so like, this is what a normal job looks like. And this is the benefits of working a normal job. This is and like, they don't see prostitution as something as in Spanish, digno, it's like worthy, like a value, like prostitution is a value job, where it's not, it's like, this is not looked upon as something good. And your little culture looks upon good, but it's not looked upon as something good. And it's not something that you want. Another thing for us that makes it easy for pregnant girls is like, do you want your children to go through the same thing you're going through? And they're like, no, I don't want that. So that's a really big motivator. Before I worked with a ministry that we only worked with prostitutes, we didn't work with pregnant girls. And they were the hardest because there were no motivation to change. But the pregnant girl's like, I don't want the same for my child, my child, so I'm willing to do whatever to get off the drugs, to learn a skill trade, to work a job. Even if I don't like the job, it's not my favorite job to do, I'm going to work this job because I want to give my child a different life for his life.
Yeah, makes sense. It's such a vicious cycle because you only know what you know, and you only are look at the people that you surround yourself with. That's you're the average of the sum of 5 people, right? So it's pretty tragic, and the part that really hurts as well is that this gets this only has gotten worse over the years because of sex tourism and people coming here for the absolute wrong reasons and then staying here or coming in and out. And I think it got like in the last few years, got pretty bad to where that was like a thing for what Colombia was known for. It was prostitution and cocaine, and which is like insane because the city offers so much. It's unbelievable. What have you seen? You've been here for 27 years. Or what have you seen in the 27 years that you've been here? Like the cycles, and what do you see the future? Like, let me rephrase the question. In the last 27 years, what have you seen that has happened with the city to get to the point that it's gotten? And what do you see the near future look like as we near 2025 here and hopefully next couple of years?
Right. So Medellín is 4 million people in 18 by 6 miles square, right? And there's a river that runs right down through the middle of it. And so on the other side of the river, it's less than 80 years old. And there's probably almost 1,700,000 people live on the other side of the river. So in the last 80 years, 1,700,000 people is moving on the other side of the river. Wow. Plus, then you have this other side, right? And so it's just tremendously growing. As a business, I mean, you look at I know we're talking about terrible things about the sex tourism and all that stuff, but really, it's a beautiful place to invest. Of course, like the normal property is increasing 10% per year. The inflation the U.S. dollar goes a really long ways here in Colombia. So for investors coming to Colombia, and then employment, compared to minimum wage here is more or less let's say if the dollar's really high right now. So it's $300 a month, where the minimum wage in the States is a lot more. So for people coming to look to do like, hey, I want you to work virtually for me, it's a great place to invest. And so I think Colombia per se, Medellín, one of the most innovative city of the world. And so like, I'm poor, I have no money, but I have, I lost my job, right? I just lost my job. What am I going to do? I have some flour in the kitchen, some cheese, and I have some oil. I'm just going to make some buñuelos and sell it, make some money. And I made my money for the day. And then tomorrow I'm going to make empanadas. And you see like these Colombians like really rise up out of poverty. Like there's like some sayings about the Paisa people that they're hardworking. Like of a city in South America, Medellín, I've traveled to 63 countries.
Wow.
And I think Medellín is one of the hardest working cities. Like they have no problem working 48 hours a week. They have no problem going beyond. Like once they grab a hold of whatever they're working, like they're very responsible. And so I think because of that, we'll just see Medellín, we'll see Rio Negro. They say Rio Negro is the next Medellín, which is probably, they say there's, I don't know the exact number, they say there's 1 million people, but all the large manufacturing places are going to Rio Negro for tax reasons. So I think that's going to just continually grow. If you, in my time frame, when you look out to your beautiful balcony, all the houses that are adobe brick houses, right? All the adobe brick houses are less than 20 years old.
No.
And it's full, right? I mean, everywhere you look, you see construction everywhere. So I feel that Medellín, Colombia has a good prospect. It's coming to be the second or third largest expat community.
Yep.
Like for people coming. So I think there's going to be a lot of people investing, and there's some really, hospitals. I don't know if you've been to a hospital here.
No, nothing gotten yet.
But I have been I have 3 children.
Yeah.
And I have all the children in the foundation. If you go to the emergency room, within 20 minutes, unless there's a flu going on through the city, within 20 minutes you're talking to a doctor. That never happens in the United States.
Yeah, never.
And so medical attention is excellent, and it's clean medical attention, professionals, they're very well trained. Yeah. And so I do think there'll be a larger influx of people coming to Colombia. The universities are good here.
Great education.
And so I think it has a bright future for Colombia. And I think it has a very bright future for anything to do, like nomad work. I think it's
business.
We have amazing internet. The internet in Medellín is way better than anywhere I go to the United States.
It's actually, you say that, and it's so funny because when I go back to the States to stay with my parents, the internet in my house and most places I've lived here is tremendously better. Like, because my entire business operates on internet. Right. So my stress level I don't want to think about the internet.
Right.
I just has to work. And here it's levels ahead. Yeah, and go back to your point. I mean, you're right. Like we were talking about dark side because we want to make people aware that there is, that this is happening. That's the reality. But the city is incredible. There's a reason why I've been here for 4 years. I get to work anywhere in the world. I have team members in 13 or 14 different countries, and I haven't traveled to 60 countries, but I've been to at least 14, 15. And there's something that continuously brings me back here, right? Mm-hmm. And we have an amazing community, and we're getting now involved with foundations, which is exciting. Obviously, having a team here, just beautiful people, beautiful culture. We're also talking about that. Talk to me about the future for your foundation. So, you've been running it for, I think you said 9 years. And what's your ultimate goal? What's the objective here? Because obviously, there needs to be help. And, myself and, people I'm in cahoots with, we would love to help. And people that are watching, and, every year we raise money for charities here. We met at the event where we raised, I think it was like, $20,000 or something. And we just want to continue helping because we take so much from the city where it feels literally wrong if we can't at least give back a portion of what we give. So what's the ultimate goal for you and the foundation, and how can people help?
Yeah, so in our short-term goal right now, we have 11 mothers between our two homes that live in there 24 hours, 7 days a week. Those 11 mothers cost us $400 a mother. But we want $400 a mother per month.
Per month, yeah.
And
okay.
so we have a staff of social workers and psychologists and educators and directors and cooks. And so that pays for taking care of all these girls, the medical attention, everything. But we want to be able to house 16 mothers. And so that's our short-term goal. We want to house 16 mothers. And so to be able to house 16 mothers, we got to increase that $400 per mother per month. And so that's, so we get some people like, hey, I want to get $400 to pay for 1 month for one mother, right? And so sometimes 12 people come together, we'll pay for one mother, or as a company, we'll pay for one mother, and that's actually, if it's a U.S. company, if it's U.S. or Colombia, they can still get their tax write-offs for donating to us. And then in the long-term goal, there's a lot of refugees. So we're dealing with the mothers that are homeless, pregnant. That's our main focus. You're pregnant, come to live in our home. But for the mothers that are walking down the streets, we're getting ready to create like a small home for them. It's just like 5 beds. And that's also $400 a month. But that's going to be like a short-term treatment. Like, come here for 6 months. We're going to train you, educate you, empower you to be an entrepreneur and go out and start a business. And so that's another big project. But the big financial project, like in the future, we want to have another gigantic home to be able to house about 50 refugee mothers, come here and sleep at night and get training and break this vicious cycle of poverty. So that's some of our projects that we have.
And that's obviously mostly Medellín. Have you thought about expanding past Medellín and doing this maybe in Cali or Bogota or?
Yeah, so us as Global Transformation Ministries in the States, our goal is like people have like-minded, come here, learn our model, and then go to another city, whether it's Cali or whether it's Bogota, whether it's Honduras or whether it's Puerto Rico or some other Central South American country, And so it could get bigger. We do go around every once in a while and go to different places. They're doing similar type work and go train their staff and their volunteers to be able to have a better impact upon their foundations. So we do a little bit of that part. Like when you work with the homeless, there's all types of needs.
I can't imagine.
And the only thing that keeps us from helping their needs is we have the need to be able to have money to help them, right? So we feed 200 people every 2 weeks. Wow. On a feeding program. So every 2 weeks we go out and feed 200 people. Well, we could do 200 every week, but it takes some money to be able to feed 200 every week, right? So it's like, there's a lot of great foundations. And so like, I would even say, I don't know when you're watching this podcast, you'll be watching it months later or years later, right? But if it's like Christmas time, I know a lot of people are like looking where to invest. I mean, all these foundations that we love and you love and people invest in, it's a good time to help at the end of the year to be able to get their tax write-offs. And it really impacts what people can do throughout the world.
100%. Every year, so I'm going to tell you my intention and, the audience, because for the last 3 years, we have helped for Christmas, helping, raise money and buying gifts for kids and for Christmas, which has been amazing. And it's actually kind of funny because the first year we raised money and I left. The second year we raised money and I went to buy the gifts and then I left. And this year I'm like, I'm raising money, I'm buying the gifts and I'm actually giving it to the kids. Like,
it's the best.
It is the best. And I literally missed out because it was not by choice. I was literally, my visa ended or something where I was like, frick, like I'm literally here and I have to leave. But this year I'm like, I just did my last trip. I mean, God willing, that nothing else happens, and I get to stay here and not only raise money but also buy the gifts and actually give it back because I really want to be able to share it with the world. Like I love YouTube on a random note, so I've always liked when people that are pranking whatever, when they actually are giving back to the homeless, even if it's a prank, like even if they're that's like they're trying to build an audience. I'm like, dude, do this, do more of this. Right. But people in the comments are like, oh, well, they're only doing this to help the homeless. I'm like, what a great reason. Like, so for me, you know, I make content. I want to literally, as much as I can, record and show people like, look, this is what you can help with. And, you know, this can go such a far way. And especially if you want to, if you can, right? Of course, if you're struggling and you have your own stuff going on, like, God bless, take care of yourself. But there are people that are able to afford it and they don't know where to spend it and their business is making a lot of money. And I'm like, this is the best place to do it. And one of the things I love about Colombia that has happened over the last couple of years that I've been here is we've built an amazing community. Huge shout out to Thomas Gieb for being able to build a really powerful community of entrepreneurs that are traveling in and out, that are running successful businesses, because we hold each other accountable. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're making money and you're not giving back, like, you're not successful in my eyes. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of of a gentleman. His name is Dan Fleischman. He's a very famous investor in the U.S., one of the youngest venture capitalists in the U.S. at one point. Probably haven't heard of him, but he has a podcast called The Money Mondays. Big fan of it. And he interviews people, and he has 3 rules in the interviews. He's like, how did you make your money? What did you start? How did you make your money? And how do you give it all away? If you don't have the charity part, he doesn't have you on the podcast. He doesn't even want to look at you. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, if you're a trillionaire, cool. How are you giving money back? What are you doing? Who are you helping? Whether it's sick kids, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, sex trafficking, like, how are you helping giving back? Because you have so much power and leverage that you can really make a difference. So, are there other, like you mentioned, other foundation and charities? Are there other foundation and charities that you work with together that you'd also recommend people looking into, that, you know, they're legit? Because there's obviously some scamming charities, unfortunately, which is disgusting. But are there any ones that you recommend the audience or people looking into in terms of also helping them out?
Yeah, so there's one here in Medellín. It works with adults that are on homeless children. It's called Ciudad Refugio, which is like refuge city. And they do an amazing ministry to homeless people in the streets, and they're awesome. And then there's one called Open Arms Foundation, Fundación Brazos y Otros, and they reach out to homeless children there. And they have they have 12 children on a farm outside the city. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. And then there's all these other, really almost all the foundations here are working with the skin of their teeth, right? I mean, so like, I always kind of like say, what do you like? Like, what is the people that's in your heart? Is it children? Is it pregnant mothers? Is it babies? Is it older people? Like, there's some foundations here that work with senior citizens that are like retired, you know, that no one takes care of them, you know, ancianos in Spanish. My English is gone, man. But there would be 2, definitely Open Arms Foundation and Refugee City would be 2 ministries I would recommend. We do network with several different foundations, and thankfully, like, our network of, like, I tell people, don't just come and give, come and see what you're doing. And there's nothing like, I think it's totally awesome you did all the raising the money and help those people, but the most awesome part is like when you take a soccer ball that you paid $5 for and you put it in a kid's hands that not only smiles but cries for getting that gift. That is like priceless. It's like there's no $5 you can go spend and get that joy, just seeing that kid's face, right? And so 0%. I'm the blessed one because there's a lot of people that sponsor our foundation, and I get to see it. I get to see, like, the girl cried, "Hey, we got a donor that's going to pay for your college," and just to see her eyes crying at Thanksgiving. You know, that's the fun part of our foundation, to see, like, the gift, like, to go to some lady that didn't have teeth, and we got a donor that's going to pay for your teeth so that you can smile. You know, that's some fun things. Yeah. And so
it's like the most selfishly unselfish thing possible, because you're selfishly so happy, but you're also like helping someone change their entire life, change the course of their future, and so on and so forth. So what I was telling you is one of the things that my team and I talked about today was we want to start partaking not just in end of the year Christmas events, but we want to start doing like quarterly events because I have a team here in Bogota and Armenia and whatever, and be able to basically partner with either, charities and foundation and have like a networking event, some similar to what Thomas is doing, but also being able to provide people, I don't really know the exact vision, but I've always visualized that I want to be able to do more than I'm currently doing, because right now I'm only doing it in Q4. So it's like Q1, 2, 3, I'm focusing on business, doing whatever, but I want to be able to at least feel that I did something good Q1 and then Q2, Q3. It's not going to be every week, but at least once a quarter. I think that's beyond doable. So that's something that I'd love to, continue talking to you and, other charities and foundation, because,
Yeah. And I would kind of recommend, like, I have some friends that have like large companies, and what I've seen is, like, when it comes to donating, choose 2 or 3. Don't do 4, 5, 6. Because then, I'll just say this for all the people listening, because like as a company, we are making a difference and the people that work for you, like we are actually making a difference. These people, like they're able to become part of it, right? So as a company, we're all working, we're all making money, but by my work, we're able to help these refugee children in Colombia, or we're able to help the refugee mothers, or we're help pregnant girls, or we'll help but they actually is more personalized, because when we do like, hey, we're helping 50 different foundations, then the people that work for you are like, well, yeah, we just help a bunch of poor people. But no, it's like, we're helping this group of people, right? And you even kind of promote it on your company. This is like where the money's going to. I have some friends on their website, they actually have on their company website, who do we give to? And you go through, they actually have the checks copied that have been cashed on their thing. Like, this is actually, we really want to show where the money's going.
Yeah, so, we want to do the exact same thing, because it's like, we're taking care of our team, and obviously all my team members have families, in terms of like either significant others that they live with, or they're literally children. So it's like, in a sense, I'm giving back, but they're working for the company, and they were, helping us build something big, and it's not the same, right? Taking care of your worker and taking care of a kid. Like for me, the kid part, I think, is the most crucial part, because I realize how blessed I am. Like, my parents are together, and I grew up in the U.S., and I'm a Jew. It's like I'm literally in the 1% right there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a true blessing in disguise. So I wish that other people got to taste what I can taste on a regular basis, and the only way that's possible is by being able to provide them opportunities in order to get there. And I always tell my team, and I always tell people, like yourself, whatever. I truly believe there's a way to have these kids, the pregnant moms, even whatever, the people that are not in the right place in life, if they can escape it and learn English, it's like a combo.
Oh yeah,
it's over.
Night and day difference.
It is a night and day difference. Their whole life has changed. But I know, like, learning English, like I had to learn English. Even the gentleman behind the camera, a good friend of mine, Wolf, he had to learn English. So it's like it is a skill. It takes time. It takes effort, and the earlier you learn it, the easier. Because right now I'm learning Spanish as a 29-year-old. Let me tell you, it is difficult. It is not. It's not easy. So I know for you, you're dealing with older, women in a sense. They're not, 12, 11, 9 years old. Sometimes they are, of course, but teaching them English and being able to even give them a skill that they can eventually take. They don't have to work as a remote worker that I'm sure that's a dream job for a lot of people, but they can even just work in a restaurant in Poblano and make, $300, $400, $500 a month. Yeah. So it's just the little things.
Yeah. It's night and day difference though. The language barrier, like through the years working in different foundations, all of our children that's learning, like we teach English to everybody, but there's ones that get it and ones that, I don't know, this is not for me, right? Yeah. And the ones that actually got it could speak it instant jobs. Yeah. And the jobs are good. Like I got kids now, they're in Sweden, they're working. They learn English, right? They went to the United States and they went to college because they learned English. And so to see like literally a guy that was hanging on the back of a banana truck, getting away from the refugees, getting away from the guerrillas in Colombia. Now he went to the United States, studied 2 years, came back to Colombia, worked for 2 years in a foundation. And then he got married and is living in Sweden with his wife. It was all because the language. It is like to encourage foundations to learn English.
So we're gonna link all the foundation on the website on the podcast description. I'm gonna link it to all the stories and everything else that we're going to do, is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience about the foundation, the goals, and how to help? Because a lot of people that are watching, they don't live in Colombia, so they don't obviously they won't be able to come and experience this as much as I want them to, but some of them will, some of them won't. Is there anything else that you would tell the people watching how they can help and how they can contribute?
Yeah, ways you can help. You can go on the website at www.tministries.org. That's a good place to donate, and that all the resources for that go to our girls' home and our refugee home. If there's something like, hey, I'm a Venezuelan refugee, I want to help the Venezuelans, you just earmark it, the Venezuelans, or I want to help the pregnant girls, you can earmark it, and it goes straight to them. All 100% of the donation goes to that. Mm-hmm. And then it's also networking. Like, you have a podcast there, you used your podcast for a very different purpose than normal, right? Mm-hmm. And you use your resources to be able to help our girls and help our foundation. So whatever gifts and talents God's given you to be able to, we can do this and help these girls. And so we're open to hear different ways on how to help. And so like Thomas with his foundation, he's helping all these foundations, using all of his network and friends and entrepreneurs to be able to join people together. So the more you get our name out there and what we're doing, and I think it will help us tremendously. So
we literally bully people to go to these charity events, and we bully them more to donate. So they, I don't want you to show up. Don't just show up and smile. You're not here for pictures. You can do that anywhere else. If you come, I need you to donate, even like $10, $50, $100, whatever it is, because it goes a really long way. And ultimately, like I said, this city is giving us so much. It's changed my life. It has provided me with incredible opportunities, which helped me help so many other people with opportunities. So the only way that I can continuously live this life is by giving back. So it kind of makes sense. Zig Ziglar says it, right? You give people everything they want, and they'll get everything you want back in return. So, Brian, it is a pleasure. We're reaching out the hour mark here. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing with the people a lot about your foundation, the story, how you got here. 27 years in Colombia is it doesn't register in my mind, because I'm like, man, I feel like I've been here for so long. And hoping we can continue to help you and your foundation, and share with the world and what you're doing, what you're working on, and how you're trying to change the city and make it better every single day.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boom.